Morning, Toby.
Morning,
Foul
Giles.
morning. But this is Mill's house. Why do you like Mill so much?
Well, J.S. Mill was the first political philosopher I read, aged 17, as part of preparing for my Oxford interview. And I was a punk anarchist at the time, and Mill very clearly articulates these principles which circumscribe the limits of state action. And yes, Mill had a very unusual education. He was taught Greek at the age of 3, was reading Plato in the original, aged 10. His father, who homeschooled him, James Mill, was a disciple of Jeremy Bentham's, the founder of utilitarianism. And James Mill also co-founded University College London. And Mill completed his education by attending lectures as a teenager at UCL.
Meanwhile, our in-house expert, Dr. Elizabeth Fraser, says Mill is one hell of a read.
J.S. Mill's theory of freedom is cogent and powerful and readable. He was courageous. He stood up for the rights of women in a hostile environment.
So, Toby, you mentioned Jeremy Bentham, and there he is. That really is him, his skeleton at least. They had to remove his head because it was a bit gruesome and put the waxwork on. But he is the founder of utilitarianism. Mill's father is a disciple of his, but J.S. Mill has a sort of crisis about it. Tell me what happens.
At the age of 20, Mill had what he described as a nervous breakdown. He'd had this difficult experience in his childhood of being brought up in a household in which his father and all his father's intellectual companions were completely beholden to this man. And I think, one of the reasons Mill then devoted his life to resisting intellectual oppression in all its forms was because of the intellectually oppressive atmosphere in his childhood home.
But there he is, J.S. Mill. And they put up a statue to him, but what is his great claim to fame?
Well, he wrote a number of celebrated essays on subjects like utilitarianism and representative democracy. He was an MP. He was the first MP, I think, to call for votes for women. But his great claim to fame is his essay entitled On Liberty, in which he articulates what's become known as the harm principle, and which has become one of the touchstones of libertarianism. And the principle is that the only justification for restraining an individual, for the state interfering in an individual's life and preventing him from doing something against his will, is to prevent harm to others.
For Mill, politics is just as it is. He accepts the politics of his time, which is striking in someone who is so unconventional and who refuses to be hidebound by the values of his day.
So, Toby, he's a Victorian political thinker. Does he have any relevance to us today?
Well, one of the points that Mill made most forcefully is that democracy and liberty don't always go hand in hand. Indeed, they're often in conflict. And there ought to be certain carefully defined spheres into which the state shouldn't be able to intrude. And part of that sphere should obviously be free speech.